iko mali ama is empty.
Project aims at technology generation, along a commodity value chain. That technology is also disseminated to the farmers, increase food production, increase employment, and poverty reduction. The concept of the project is each country has been given a center of excellence, that is the 4 countries within the Eastern African region, the 3 countries, Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania, and Ethiopia.
As we are aware today, Kenya is one of the Sub-Saharan Africa having the most vibrant dairy subsector. And when we look at it's important, it contributes directly to the GDP over 4%. Some people have been talking about up to 7% because when you look at the amount of money we get from dairy compared to the total GDP, it is more than actually 4%, but now we are talking about 4%. And when we look at agricultural GDP contribution to the economy, which you know is about 25% direct, dairy has 40% of the GDP. Today we are posting of about 3.5 million dairy cattle, the process plus the bigger breeds of the Frisians, Ashers, Hanses and Jerseys. And another 14 million from last census of our zebu's, which also contributes to the dairy. Then we have about 2.9 million camels. They also have a lot of input into the dairy industry. You know, camels you have not really developed. That's why in a year project, we agreed that we need to exploit the potential of the camel in the areas where it has the potential, like northeastern Parambara. It's mainly talking about dairy and yes. And also we have the dairy goats, all the goats in general, they also contribute to the milk. So when we look at all these animals, the output, as of last year November, when we got our figures, we are over 5 billion liters of milk. Today, from last year 2010, we were putting on 4.2, but now we are over 5 billion. But unfortunately, this milk we are on, dependent on rainfall. Today, we are talking about milk shortage. It's because of the weather conditions which have changed very fast. Now you can see when a packet of milk from the supermarket is 45 shillings, isn't it? That's a challenge. When we are here now with this project, we have to rethink where are we, what are we going to do in order to stabilize the milk production. That's why here has come on board. There's areas of intervention which we will see to address some of these gaps that we get. So the output actually is very low at the moment, and we find that most of this milk comes from the exotic dairy animals, over 80%. The zebu's contribute about 12%, the camels and the goats produce about 16%. And actually, when you look at the importance issue, father gives a lot of employment, over 1,000. If you look at the people feeding a dairy animal in this country, over 1 million. Smallholders. And when translated to households, the number of people directly involved, because of an average of about 8 or so people in this country, you see over 8 million, or 20% of the population of Kenya depends on dairy directly. Then when we look at the issue of the demand, we are still short of the demand, although we are talking that we have so much. If we look at the recommendations from WHO, our milk consumption per capita is supposed to be 220 liters per capita per year. But we are today having 90 You see the gap. So per capita consumption in Kenya, although it's the highest actually in Sabasana, one of the highest, but from South Africa, we are still consuming 90 liters. So we are still far from getting to that level that is recommended in the WHO recommendation of FAO. So that is something we need to look at, so that we see how can we have this. And in fact, through the government policies, remember the Young Milk Scheme? It was there, but it died. We are trying to again to reintroduce the school milk program, so that we can encourage more people to consume milk to feed our children. There were programs like LDP. LDP came here, it was cow rotation, giving farmers dairy animals. I don't know that it was sustainable, but in essence, it also did something. We have other programs like smallholder dairy commercialization project, which has come and is operating in parts of this country. That project, as far as I'm concerned, has done quite some time, quite a lot wherever it's working, particularly on the feed compounding. Today we are encouraging farmers to do their feed at that level of their for production, instead of waiting for MCK or other factories in Munga need to bring their feed at their doorsteps. We have a lot of materials which are going to waste. And for sure, there are even machinery which have been produced to convert that one into usable feed products. I hope, Madam, you are going to fast track for these people through your procurement to get these pulverizers so that they can utilize the materials which go waste at the farm level, so that farmers can somehow stabilize on their meat production. We are in the process. In fact, our intention for this one was that you come and collect the food, but unfortunately, because no procurement systems in our country, it takes time to get some of these things. We are in the process of acquiring some of those equipment so that you can also pick them and use them together with the AI kits so that you can improve on your output from those areas. I think that's the way we are going. And with this project actually, to finish, we are hoping the working relationships at this level, we are working very well with Dr. Mujeni. And the desk concern for the DLP is the desk concern for the DBS. And we have been consulting very well. And even our BDOs and DLPs, we told them, when you are doing a plan or request for resources, please do it. And you have two signatures coming to us, then we look at it. Later in the day, we are going to meet and look at some of your proposals. But it's unfortunate that we have not really conceptualized what we agreed and with your approved work plans.
I assure you, on my part, that under EAAPP, the two technical departments in your ministry are working very closely, and that is why we have the representatives of the DLP here, and also the representatives of the DVS from the field. And we shall continue working very closely, I can assure you that. Thank you, Bwana Matoke. I now wish to invite Dr. Rekesa, the DD Breeding, to talk on delivery of breeding services in Kenya. Karibu Daktari.
Way back at the beginning of last century, that was in 1908, it's when we had our first exotic cattle brought into Kenya from South Africa. So basically that was the mass, what we would call modern breeding into this country. As you have been told, in 1935, of course, that's when AI took off in this country. And comparatively worldwide, we were only second to Russia. So again, consequently, in 1946, it was thought prudent to start semen processing plant, which we fondly have been referring to as a Central Artificial Insemination Station in this country. And basically that was focusing on the control of breeding diseases and, of course, increase the availability of semen in this country. In 1957, that is the first time when the African farmer was allowed to use AI for breeding of our indigenous cattle. And at independence, that is by 1966, is when the program called Kenya National Artificial Insemination Service was launched. And basically that is the milestone that enabled the Kenyan farmer to use AI in that big way. And in 1971 then, after observing, because in 1966, the cost of AI was about 40 shillings per insemination. And in 1971 then, the head of state thought that was unaffordable within the African sense. So it was reduced to 1 bob per 4 inseminations. And basically that is why we saw the industry come up in that big way. So this, between 1971 up to 1988, when the SAPs came in, we had a very vibrant industry in terms of breeding by use of AI. So in 1988, with the introduction of the SAPs, then AI, clinical services, and tick control were privatized. That is, the government had a regulatory and supervisory role, whereas the private sector was to give these services. And consequently then, between that time and I would say as up to the turn of the century, AI services went down. Reasons as at that time were that provision, the way the changeover from government provision of services to the private sector was not harmonized. So in areas where there was no private provider of AI then, suffered because the government withdrew and kind of there was no private sector provider to give the same service. So the challenges which we faced from that period when it was privatized then were that because of this disorganized handing over of AI to the private provider, it led to the downsizing of AI provision. So as early as 2004, there was an intervention within the government sector, and this intervention was basically to enable the government to address the issue of provision of services where the private sector was not available. So they went in to appoint the agencies in those areas so that they can support the farmer. And two, the government also went in to provide, to support the farmer through, or the provider through equipment provision. So between that 2004 and as up to 2010, when EAAPP came on board, kind of there was an uplift again in the service provision. But then the challenges that were as up to 2010 were that there was high cost of equipments which hampered the offtake of private AI enterprises. The equipment were very expensive, and if I can give you an insight into what it cost, one kit would cost us up to 250,000 to be able to put up and start one. So that kind of was not small money for the upcoming providers after training. So consequently then, with the incoming of EAAPP, that was the first challenge we had to address. The district veterinary officers were not facilitated, and actually this from as early as 1990 up to 2010 as such, there was no money provision for the incoming of EAAPP. What have we done between 2010 when we started and now? I would just like to highlight some of the achievements which we've gone through as a department or as a ministry, so that we are well aware of where we are and possibly where we are moving to. The first thing we had to do was we had to look at the decentralization, the provision of services. We realized that it was the private sector giving the services and the government was regulating. But then, in the regulation, the field officers were not involved. So what we did was we had to decentralize both regulation and supervision so that we effectively interact with the providers in the field. So that is why we had to go around the country to sensitize the DBOs and generally field staff so that they would be all on board and be able to realize that AI provision cannot go on without that watch. Then we also brought together the providers during that session. So the providers, we were able to capture them and license them and in fact give them an ID. So as we are talking today, we managed to give IDs to 977 AI providers around the country. Through these IDs, we also have record through the electronic equipment, that's the computer and otherwise. We are able now to communicate with them at any time. We also, because we realized that disease was a major part in reduction of productivity in the dairy sector. So here through EAAPP, we supported the development of FMD, that is foot and mouth disease strategy, which as we are talking today is in place. Through EAAPP again, we are also established a quarantine station in Namanga. This basically is to address the issue of trade in the animal and the animal products across the border. So with this establishment, we feel that the future now for trading, basically when you focus on breeding, you are looking at the like semen and embryos and all that, and other products. It's a full-fledged quarantine station which we intend to operationalize after putting up. We have finished the designs, the survey, and anytime now we're going to put it up. We also looked at the capacity of the officers we have in the department, and we realized that there are areas where we had a shortfall. So in capacity building then, we have trained a number of officers in assisted reproductive technologies. This is both in AI and in the embryo transfer. We are now capable of carrying out these two technologies effectively from the department. We have also trained others in strategic leadership and management, and there is one who is doing public policy development. Basically, we are strategizing to give capacity to the department so that they be able to address the pertinent issues. We also realized that extension was a major part and part of breeding, and we have developed 7 brochures and 2 posters developed. This is basically going to the focus districts so that they are able to inform the farmer on when to detect heat, to manage disease, and of course improve reporting between the government and the private sector. We have also developed, or rather we are in the process of developing a national breeding strategy. This one is in the process, and anytime we shall have it, because we realize that in the past, as much as we were undertaking activities, we were not focused. So that is why we decided to undertake this one. Of course, through collaboration again, promotion of embryo transfer technology, we are undertaking together with East African Semen and Embryo Transfer Association. This is an association by the private sector to be able to undertake this. We are also in cooperation with the ILRI and the universities in all these setup. So as we are talking today, we have capacity to undertake this particular technology effectively. The university has a team, University of Nairobi. ILRI has also a team, ESETA has a team on its own, and of course the DBS office has a team. So we have about 4 teams which can be called upon to undertake embryo transfer. And I would like to echo what the DBS said. Eldoret, as we are talking today, there is an intention, a village or a location for that matter, has come up with the intention to massively use this technology to improve productivity in that sub-location. This is in collaboration with donors from the US who are donating both embryos and sex semen. So if you would like to see how it takes off, this one is most likely to take place in April or May this year. In collaboration with the DLP, we have also carried out sensitization workshops in 7 EAAPP focal districts, and of course we have identified the gaps in the dairy value chain. In partnership with the CAGRIC and lots of Genetic Society, whose chairman is here, we also are promoting accessibility and affordability of AI services. So we have also within the DBS office, we have established a quality control laboratory through EAAPP. This quality control laboratory, basically we are looking into any processed semen or whatever comes from outside, we are able to test and approve or disapprove accordingly. So the laboratory is there, and what we are looking forward in the future is to now put up an ET lab. This one, in the next financial year, we are focused at that level. So, in the next coming 1 year, what do we expect? We are also going to train border post desk officers and sanitary requirements. This one is anytime this month. This is basically to focus on trade when the quarantine facility comes up. We also are going to train the DVOs in regulation and supervision of AI services. This is basically to give them a new focus and demand within the department so that we are all enabled to know and be able to report on breeding activities. We are also going to focus on production of goat semen. We realized that goat semen was not adequately available in the country, and whatever was is quite expensive. Per dose goes at nearly 2,500. So we have collaborated with, of course, with CAGRIC so that we'll be able to visit the associations like the Goat Association of Kenya in Meru and in Nyeri and in South Nyanza, so that we can have an adequate amounts of semen, goat semen, for purposes of the dairy goat industry. We also are focused on, of course, harmonizing of policies which would facilitate a proper trade across the border. This is in relation with the East African countries. And of much importance is that record keeping, we realized, without it, we shall not be able to say, yes, this is the conception rate. We shall not be able to evaluate our success. So we would like to digitize and computerize all AI recording analysis of records in the DBS office. With this highlight then, we feel that we shall adequately address the challenges that were here before EAAPP. So with those few remarks, I welcome you to listen and take from us what is important to the farmer in the field. Thank you.
Madam PS, I want to assure you, and also Madam Coordinator, I think through EAAPP we have been able to make a difference in the provision of AI services in the field. As Dr. Kesa has said, we have already decentralized regulation and supervision of AI services in the field, and it is working well. We already have a database of the AI technicians who are operating in the field that have already been licensed. This is something that we did not have before, and we have it now. And as he has enumerated, there are quite a number of other things that we have been able to do. And through your support, there is quite a lot that we can do. I now wish to call upon Dr. Wamokoro, the CEO KAGRIC, to give the role of KAGRIC in provision of genetics. Karibu Daktari.
I'll be very brief because my colleagues have actually given you the history of artificial insemination. And I don't wish to repeat, but I'll just mention and talk about pertinent issues concerning breeding as far as the center is concerned. Important dates in history, Dr. Ekesa has mentioned 1946, when the center was put up as a concept and started working. He also mentioned 1966, when the service, when CEDA came in and boosted the government's efforts, and when the technology of deep frozen semen came into use in Kenya. The center, or the Central AI Station, the way we know it, grew from a very small section of veterinary department over the years until recently, about 6 years ago, when we realized that there has been a craving to make this center autonomous because of the uniqueness of managing bulls. Ladies and gentlemen, bulls, these bulls are like a hospital. Or an intensive daily zero grazing unit, massive, where they have to be, taken care of very, very well. So the semi-autonomy status was actually very, very important. And in 2006, I want to mention Banasama Matoke. The small daily commercialization project actually gave the center 3 million shillings to come up with a strategic plan. And the PS appointed a task force. We went around the country sensitizing the people, the stakeholders, and we came up, after 3 years, we came up with a strategic plan from where we have been fishing our work plans for every year. It has been reviewed actually annually to fit into the changing environment, both economically and also concerning the farming. So, I want to say the most important thing we are looking at was what I have just mentioned, transforming the station, the small station, into a kind of autonomous, self-propelling state corporation. And this matured last year in September, where the government now gazetted the center as a standalone state corporation, 5th of September. And I believe I sent copies of this legal notice, 110 of 5th September, to almost all of you. I believe I did not discriminate. I sent to DVOs, DLPOs, PDLPs, and even PDVSs, to make sure that people now know we have come from this end to the other end, and now embrace for redoubling of our efforts to make sure that these genetics reach the farmer. Earlier on, before we got this mandate, the mandate which the centralization hand was just bull semen. And then marketing, we used to do with a lot of publicity. Thanks to Dr. Mushemi, my predecessor there in the center, they started producing catalogs, which you all know, newsletters, and we have actually gone on improving on this. And flyers, brochures, and so on and so forth. We used also to do training for our local people and also African countries. Send their people there, we train them for 2 to 3 months on semen handling, liquid nitrogen handling, and breeding technologies. The center has grown by 80% for the last 6 years. We used to have 29 agents, and now we have 48. And the production then and distribution has also grown at the same rate, 75-80%. When you look at the market share, because we have got other profession or providers of genetics, we have about 16 active companies importing genetics. But they are about 20, but the difference, they don't import on a regular basis. They import once in a while. And the chairman of the Livestock Genetics Society, Dr. Odiabo, is here to attest to that. I want to say that the new dispensation has given us a very expanded mandate of preserving and conserving germplasm of all breeds. And that is enormous. It requires a lot of capacity building, infrastructural development, so that we just don't talk of a state corporation that is not growing. We also want to be on international standards. Actually, the center, I want to say here, we are on 4/5 in the process of ISO certification. We have just undergone the pre-audit. That means pre-certification audit. So we are just one more audit, and then we get the standard. However, to get the OIE standard, we got to do a lot. So we really need a lot of support from our collaborators and also the government, so that the center can be at international standards. We are also going to embrace semen of other breeds. We are not just going to be talking of bull semen alone. He has mentioned about goat semen, which we have started even earlier. We are going to embrace camel. We are also going to embrace decentralization. Madam, we are looking forward where we are going to start off with a small center at Wambogo FTC with a few bulls. A small center at Maseno, Machakos, Ukunda, or even those areas, so that the country can source genetics from nearby, close to the farmers. Having said that, I want to say that we are facing a few of challenges just emanating from demand for semen. Right now, a lot of people are, including us officers in the field, and I think these officers should be given a credit, madam, because a lot of extension has been done. The driving force here is the money coming from dairy. Every farmer wants to own a cow, want to sell milk, and want to sell heifers. So every farmer is going to dairy. And in fact that from the demand, which we used to see of 60,000 straws per month, the demand has gone almost to 100,000 straws per month. This gap, even when the importers are they are struggling to bridge the gap, they can't, and they have not achieved this. So there are things that we need to do to the center to bridge this gap. I want to thank EAAPP very much, because with the help of the project coordinating unit, the center has bought us. The project has bought us a computer-assisted semen analysis assembly. By the way, Dr. Mushemi, you remember, the only microscope which has been there for evaluation is, I think, 23 years now. It has never been replaced, and it has been manual throughout. But now that machine is now in my office, waiting to be installed from 6th of April. This machine is going to make sure that processing of semen, once it starts here, is going to be automatic for almost 6 stages. So where the processing was being handled by a human, about 7 people, we are going to remove about 5, and only maybe the first one and the last one, the other end. So we are automating the semen evaluation. This, I have already told Madam here that is going to improve the production maybe by between 30 and 40%. So as we are now producing about 3,000 straws per day, we may be able to double, because we are going to improve other areas. And maybe we shall try to catch up with the demand. Right now, I have had a lot of communication from Eldoret. About 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, when there was a show, I had that so many calls. Farmers are complaining here, there is no semen. They won't understand the language of the difference between production and demand. They won't, because the farmers don't want stories. Farmers want semen when the cow is on heat, because the cow is not also going to wait. So thank you very much. I want to thank you very much, EAAPP, and I believe EAAPP has given us a lot of support, 35 million shillings plus, and we appreciate this. So, to finish, what is the way forward? The way forward here, I'm looking at what we are going to do today, madam. The demand I'm talking about is going to be increased from today. When you take this equipment, and the people who have not been using AI come to the service, I have donated 4,500 straws. What happens when that one gets drained? It has to be replenished on constant basis. So we have to embrace, to be prepared for continuity and sustainability. We don't want to stop today.
And EAAPP for convening this meeting at the EAAPP as their kind gesture, plus the Greek CEO, in giving us the opportunity even to serve our farmers by provision of the AI kit plus the semen straws. This is a good partnership, because we are not depending